If we allow that, kiss workers' rights bye-bye, then every Monday morning an employer will just, so it's not going to happen.
It is nonsense that people feel that in the light of an agreement they can just walk off the job like this and come back just because they say they must come back. We must walk off whenever we like and come back whenever we like. If you don't like it, you can stick it up.
It's only the fourth week of the year 2003, and the industrial relations climate on the island have already started to demonstrate signs of deterioration. This having to do with issues surrounding the retrenchment of 10 employees of Grenada's national broadcast facility, the GBN. The relationship between the management and the bargaining unit took a turn for the worst on the evening of Tuesday, January 7, 2003, when the employees staged a work stoppage, which escalated into a strike on January 15th. The bone of contention, according to TAWU, is the manner in which the process of retrenchment was conducted by the management, among other issues. Today is the 14th day of the GBN impasse, and from the outset, all parties seem to be bent on reaching an agreement. However, issues surrounding this travesty would never cease to get the attention of the public. And in this evening's program, we would seek to address some of the concerns and the issues by some of the major players in this current dispute. On the evening of January 7, 2003, it was announced by GBN that retrenchment letters were served to 4 employees of the company. However, what they did not say was that 6 additional employees were to be retrenched on the same day. That, however, never happened because of the intervention of the Technical and Allied Workers Union, the major bargaining unit for the workers here, on that said evening.
We have very strong reason to believe that the GBN, while it may be experiencing some financial difficulties, is using the opportunity to engage in anti-union activity, namely to weed out from its staff persons who it deemed to be trade union activists. And we, in fact, this matter was really not even discussed, right, because we sought information. No.
But the position of GBN, are you saying that you think that it is anti-union?
Yes, but I'm coming to that. What I'm saying to you, even the current industrial action taken by the union and the workers is not even as a result of that.
It's not a result of
no, it's not as a result of that, because as far as we are concerned, we haven't yet gotten to that stage.
The union is contending that the company violated Section 21 of the collective agreement, which says, quote, "The retrenched worker shall receive, in addition to his pay to the date of retrenchment and the pay entitlement under subsection B of this article, 3 months' notice or 3 months' pay in lieu of full notice," unquote.
When we met on the 7th, the company then said to us, well, look, yes, they have these financial difficulties, and that will result in the cutting of 1/3 of the workforce. 1/3 of our members were to be sent home. And, well, we actually basically got information from the company. We asked the company for its audited statement of accounts so that we can have something which certified the company's losses, because all the manager was doing was talking from a sheet of paper. We had no way of satisfying ourselves that the claim made by the company of losses were correct. The company indicated that it could not make available to us the audited statements, as it had to clear that with the board. And we said, well, all right, clear it with the board and then get in touch with us. We were not satisfied that the reasons given by the company with respect to how they selected these 10 workers was above board.
When the management of GBN was asked to respond to the claims of the union for the completion of this program, they continued to remain tight-lipped and reluctant in speaking to members of the local media. However, in this exclusive interview with Leslie Pierre, who is a member of the board of directors of the company, Pierre said the company's actions were properly advised.
If the company has gone so far as to agree, as I understand they have, to give the people the 6 months' pay in lieu of notice, this is my understanding, because the union feels that you must talk to them for 3 months before you could dismiss or retrench workers. Now, all over the world, workers are being retrenched, all over the world. I've heard of no strike as a result of retrenchment. I'm not saying none has happened, because I suppose there are other unreasonable trade unionists elsewhere in the world. There are other Chester Humphreys elsewhere in the world. You follow? But everybody understands that in the economic situation that exists worldwide today, companies are not only retrenching, they are shutting down. And I would not be surprised if this is not settled soon, if the company shuts down. I mean GBN. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they do that.
After the official declaration of strike action by TAWU on Wednesday last, the management of the company issued a statement claiming that the strike action and the work stoppage was illegal and not in accordance with the collective agreement. In fact, the general manager of GBN said that the agreement is not worth the paper it is written on. The employees found guilty of this all received termination letters at their homes under the cover of darkness. A move, according to Humphrey, was extremely reckless.
The company has now engaged in a sort of reckless absurdity, in the sense that it has now fired all the workers who are on strike, in addition to those who were not employees of the company. The workers who were retrenched by the company with immediate effect. So these workers were no longer employees of the company. What the company has done, the company has said it has taken back the dismissal letters, brought the workers that it retrenched back on staff, and now fired them for taking part in what it described as an illegal strike. No, that is so absurd that it is not funny. Simply, a contract arises when there's an offer and acceptance. The workers who were terminated at that point were no longer members or no longer employees of the company. You can't employ a man without his consent. So by issuing, the thing, it's totally absurd. And I wish Mr. Pierre, if he has any modicum of sense, to sit for a moment and advise the board that it's absurd to do that.
And how do some of the GBN employees view the actions of management?
What the company of GBN did just confirm what I had in mind all along. They don't care about us. Just the mere fact of the action that they took during this whole situation stated that clearly, and I'm very disappointed.
We are not only disappointed, but most of us are traumatized, and I'm sure we have to seek counseling after this, because knowing that you come into GBN to work one day and you get retrenched the same day in the afternoon, it's very disappointing and it's very stressful on us. Some of us have mortgage, some of us have loan in the bank, some of us have children, and knowing that at the end of the day we have to go home and tell them we won't be able to provide for them anymore. This is more than traumatic. And GBN is treating us worse than dogs. That's how I see it.
If somebody can work with a company for over 11 years, and then one morning just come to work and the company would hand you a letter saying your services are no longer required, it's a serious blow to workers' rights. Not only in GBN, but in Grenada as a whole. We have to fight this really hard, because if we don't, then workers' rights in Grenada will be seriously affected, because we can't allow GBN to get away with this, because you can't just treat somebody like that. It just don't happen.
It is unfair. You just can't operate like that. We have procedures in place, things to follow. So we are behind the union 100%, and whatever they say, we're going to go with it.
The letters of dismissal were subsequently revoked, with the GBN management agreeing to reinstate the employees, with the intention to forego immediate retrenchment after this period.
They had every right to dismiss the workers as they did before. When they did this before, and because of the intervention on when we had a previous situation like this, and it wasn't on the basis of retrenchment, it was some other thing that blew up. And when this was done before, and the Conference of Churches intervened, I was on the negotiating team for the company, and I was adamant that we should not yield, because it was very bad, and then they were picketing us and doing all sorts of things. And when the company decided to concede, I resigned from the negotiating team in protest. And I said I wouldn't have anything to do with it, because that is wrong. And that's the way I say to you now, that if they concede everything again, I will probably resign as a member of the board of directors. Because, and I'm not saying this threateningly, but I would feel that the company is there to just yield to the union.
The Grenada Trades Union Council has added its voice to the current GBN dispute. President of the TUC, Mr. Dereck Allard, who has been very vocal on issues relating to the amendments to the current Labor Relations Act in Grenada, shared this perspective with our CC6 cameras. Would it be fair to say that the management and maybe the board of GBN is setting a dangerous precedence by conducting the actions it did conduct this week?
It is certainly a very dangerous precedent, but I believe that most employers in Grenada will not follow that kind of precedent. We have been in existence as a trade union from as way back in the 1930s and 40s in Grenada, and we are accustomed to the principles of good industrial relations as practiced by the ILO, by the Caribbean Congress of Labor, by the Caribbean Labor Movement, Grenada Labor Movement. And therefore, the attitude adopted by the GBN management is one that is totally unacceptable in today's society and in today's industrial relation, and certainly in Grenada. Something that we in the trade union movement will not tolerate and we will not allow to fester.
While one understands that this issue involves the management of GBN, one cannot overlook the involvement of the government of Grenada, which shares 40% in the company's assets. In his only statement on the GBN issue, this is what Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell, who is also the Information Minister, said as he was leaving the Parliament on Friday last. As Minister of Information, I do not know if you are privy to speak on the GBN issue.
Oh no, well, I assume that the parties are deep in consultation with the Minister of Labour. We have already indicated that we support the Minister's recommendation and that we will work with the other party to ensure that they're implemented. I think that is precisely what we think. The Minister have already indicated this to the parties involved, and therefore we standing by the support of the Minister.
Okay, and finally, sir, there is a feeling on the ground that the government should retake GBN. What are your thoughts on that?
The government will not go in the other direction of its basic philosophy, which is privatizing areas that which government feels should be better handled by the private sector. As I said, there are concerns that some people have about the operation of the communication media. I think whatever concerns they have should not lead to the question of government acquisition of that particular asset. We don't think that's necessarily the best way to go. And it's in fact sending a complete opposite message of the government philosophy. I think there must be other ways of solving whatever problems and concerns that exist. And I think that's essentially what it is. We're working with both parties to solve this thing because we clearly do not want any instability in the country at this particular time, and it's not in anybody's interest. I don't think any other parties certainly want to see instability in the country at this time.
I am not surprised because the trade union movement feels that it must dictate to companies or entities with which they have agreements what must happen, who you can employ, who you cannot employ, and all that kind of thing. And if employers are not careful, they may have to ask one day, please, may I go into office today? You know, have I got your permission? May I go on vacation? Would you approve that for me, please? That is the kind of corner the trade union movement is trying to paint employers into. So I think it is most reprehensible that, and this is the second time they've done it. And again, speaking as Leslie Pierre, I will say to you that if the workers ever do that again, and the company agrees to take them back, I would not be associated with the company ever again, because I would call that chicken. You know, and I don't eat chicken anymore. You know what I mean? Because it is nonsense that people feel that in the light of an agreement they can just walk off the job like this and come back just because they say they must come back. We must walk off whenever we like and come back whenever we like. If you don't like it, you can stick it up. You know? This is terrible.
This is a backward, a retroactive, and I would say anti-worker action by a group of people who I believe do not have a place in Grenada society.
How do you see that affecting our current industrial relations climate?
Well, I don't really see it affecting our industrial relations climate in a very negative way, because as I said before, I believe most employers in Grenada have been adhering to the principles of industrial relations. They have been adhering to the principles of the collective agreement and the methods of resolving disputes. And I know, having dealt with quite a number of employers, I know for a fact that there are many employers who would not want to adopt the attitude that the GBN management has now adopted towards their workers.
Speaking in his capacity as Leslie Pierre and also as a member of the board of directors of GBN, Pierre is defensive.
People could call me anti-worker, but the people who are calling me that, trade unions who want to do as they like. You know what I mean? So by all means, call me anti-worker. I am very satisfied with my treatment of workers. I am difficult to work with. Let me make that very clear. I can get very angry if I tell you something 15 times and you still can't get it right, and I make no apology to anybody. I shouldn't have to tell you anything 15 times, so I make no apology to anybody for getting angry when that happens. You follow? So if that is anti-worker, well, I would like to accuse the worker of being anti-manager because they're not doing what the manager asks. You understand?
But how does this action serve to create a climate of relative industrial peace on the island?
As I stand here, I believe that if the management of GBN do not come to their senses, come to the reality, and do not believe that they can ride roughshod over workers' rights in Grenada, they're up for a rude awakening, because I believe that TAWU and the Grenada Trades Union Council will leave no stone unturned to ensure that these kind of behavior within the industrial field do not fester and blossom into irregularity.
This situation, it is rather unfortunate, but I believe that there are some positive out of our struggle at this time. You see, what has happened is that the whole nationalistic feeling has been invoked, and what the population of our country is 100% behind our workers. And of course, I'm very pleased indeed, and I hope that employers who like to act irrational, I think that they must receive the message. And we as workers, we are prepared to work. We have always been prepared to work, and I believe that this situation is very much unfortunate.
I would hope that the Trinidad owners would realize that this is Grenada. Grenadians are very proud people. And that this big island chauvinism that they come with, and they think that we're hungry and they could run over us, that would not happen. I would urge Mr. Craig and others to remember that Grenada gave them Butler. So they write on Butler's home turf. They're on Butler's soil. They're in the crucible that made Butler's genes. Right? And if Butler gave them trade unionism and rescued them from colonial oppression, they can't come on Butler's soil and do this and get away with it. It just would not happen.
On Friday at the Ministry of Labor, the atmosphere of talks proved to be very intensive.
No, I'm just talking with you. That's part of the process.
That's part of the process, but
yes.
The argument. Is Mr. Poso still inside there?
Yes, but that's part of the process. I usually speak to one side first, go back to the other side, and thrash out the remaining issues, and that's what I'm doing at the time, okay?
So that is what, so you'll be going back there in a while?
Yes, it's quite possible.
The GBN employees were today picketing the entrance to the broadcast facility in a mood of defiance to management on the one hand and solidarity to the affected employees on the other.
Unless the economy improves and GBN is able to fix its finances, I see another situation like this developing before too long, because I think there will need to be more retrenchment, except that there is a soon upturn in the economy and so on. You know, I think that we have to, even those who have been dismissed when taken back, if taken back, should understand that they need to put their all into helping to keep their jobs. And the way to keep their jobs is to keep the company afloat. Because if the company cannot stay afloat and we keep meeting an intransigent union, the company will shut down, I believe. And then let the workers go and run it if they want to. Buy it and run it. You follow? Buy it and run it, and you see how many workers you will retrench. You follow? Or what wages they will be paying themselves. Well, I better not say that. I better not say that. I was going to make a parallel with myself on that, but I will leave that alone. No, but seriously, we've got to get responsible here. Trade unions have got to get responsible. I would not sit idly to let any company that I am associated with, and if any time I feel that labor is being taken advantage of by government or by employer, and I am satisfied about that, I would rail against them in my paper. You follow? Because that's me, the paper, not GBN director. You follow? That's a side thing that I'm doing. I'm on this for an old friend, and I am prepared to make whatever little contribution I can. But I think that the company needs to straighten out its business if it is going to survive.
Up to press time, an amicable settlement between both parties have not been met. Meetings were still being held with the Minister of Labour, the Technical and Allied Workers Union, and the management of GBN at the Ministry of Labour, with the union going ahead with plans to escalate the action if this problem is not resolved by the middle of this week. We here at the Community Channel will of course be keeping you posted with the latest developments in this current impasse. What is clear is that GBN is probably on the brink of financial collapse. After CCN brought 60% shares into that company in 1998, it enjoyed a period of profitability for at least 2 years. And in the year 2000, it was predicted that this period is expected to be a growth period for the company. However, it is a fear of many here that the company would suffer the consequences of closing down if it has to keep the jobs of its remaining 38 workers. However, the time alone will dictate the future that Grenada's main broadcast facility is expected to take in this period. And it is the hope of everyone that an amicable resolution will be brought to this current impasse. On behalf of the entire production team at the Community Channel, we say thanks for viewing this program and have a pleasant evening.